Matt Valley, and this is the Rock and Roll Research Podcast, where we share the super cool backstories and side gigs of the research and insights pros that you trust. Today's guest is Charlie Rader, a 26-year veteran of the great Procter Gamble, founded in 1837. Now, Charlie is a chemist by training, and he's spent his career in the products research area at P&G, but he's always been a key industry leader when it comes to evaluating and adopting new to the world technologies that help make our industry better and better understand consumers. So I'm very appreciative of that. But there's more passion in Charlie than consumer innovation alone. He's also a great fan of the theater and very active in the theater, and I'll let him tell you all about that. So welcome to the show, Charlie.
Oh, thanks, Matt. Good to be here with you. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have you. So let's talk a little bit of research first. So we got some other cool things to talk, but let's start with research. So how did you get into the space? I mean, you studied chemistry, and what's the story there?
Well, I mean, we'll probably get a little bit into this about even before college, but I came to P&G, and we're in this unusual function called products research. This mix between product innovation and market research, and as you mentioned, my degree's in chemistry. So when I first came to Procter, I'm like, I don't know why they need a chemist to do this market research thing, but
Sign me up.
I'd come from a previous job was at a pharmaceutical company. So I was doing wet lab chemistry, doing quality assurance kind of work. And when I came on to Procter, and so it was like, well, what is this consumer part of it? And in Procter's products research function is pretty unique among consumer packaged goods, where we bring the technical know-how of our products and the consumer understanding together, so that we make superior products and services for folks. It's really been quite a great career, learning how to learn from consumers, as well as all the techniques along the way. So my first job was in products research, and my first assignment, I'm still very happy to say that my product's still on the shelf. So Olay body wash that has a petrolatum in it. It's Olay Complete. So it's a white body wash, not a clear body wash. And so it has superior skin benefits. And one of those first things that I ever did was to create techniques about how to measure moisturizer being applied to the skin. And,
interesting.
Yep. And so kind of what led me down that way was, not only was I learning from consumers, I was doing a lot of technical tests, doing stuff with and experimenting with consumer video at that first time. So I ran an imaging laboratory along that did consumer video. And so I learned to do the very earliest amount of editing with a computer and two videotape machines.
Yeah.
Together. So even before the days of what's called nonlinear editing, but before the days of actually cutting, tape and splice.
Right.
I started in research back in the day. That was probably the biggest leap, where other folks besides yourself would get to know me, was right around 2007 or so, where I took on a corporate responsibility to grow these types of techniques across the P&G. So it was a corporate responsibility for what's called global pride, or products research. Products research invents delightful experiences, is what they meant. And so did that for about 7 years, where we started doing innovation roadshows. We have a prototype, so to speak, of what the grit innovation fairs are going to be. So those kinds of situations where we I think that first one, we had invited about 7 research vendors about, and that was when Focus Vision was only like facility streaming,
Right.
and we had Revelation as a separate company, and we had QualView as a separate company,
Yeah.
and uh,
Wow.
so the very, I'd say, nascent days of Web 2.0 consumer research.
Hmm.
Uh, and so one of the things that I had involved with was we built a couple of research tools internally because it wasn't available, to buy out in the market research, marketplace. So a lot of those things were did a lot of early work in video analysis. We did
Hmm.
video noting. So we had field work. So one of the camera that we're actually shooting this one on was one of the kits that I trained people on so that they could take webcam videos out in the field, do face-to-face consumer research, and do live noting so that
Yeah.
when something was of interest to the researcher, when the consumer said something of interest, they could take a note, and then when they were reviewing it, they knew where the best bits were. So
Hmm.
that product we called vNote, which led to a web library called Volt, which is similar to um, a lot of the video analytics tools that we're seeing from folks at Focus Vision or
Hmm.
Living Lens, Big Sofa,
Hmm.
where you're taking transcripts, being able to search across those transcripts, finding those bits of really interesting things, and putting it and splicing it together to make a highlight reel.
Yeah.
So video analytics and video has always been a passion area of mine when it comes to research. And that's also because it spills over into my hobbies in photography, videography, and acting.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool. So let's talk about that. I think you started acting before you started calculating joules. Is that right?
Absolutely. I got the theater bug when I was in 6th grade. Our elementary school always put on a Shakespeare play. And so I caught the bug pretty early, did stuff, learned and performed mime in junior high, got a lot of leads in high school and whatnot. And I actually double majored in chemistry and theater in college at Ohio University. Uh,
Not
it,
common.
for a great college entrance essay. Why do you want to do these weird things? Um, it turned out that right after I graduated, I had the opportunity to join a traveling theater company called Covenant Players, and I toured with them for about a year and a half. And actually, that's where I met my wife. We do a lot of theater together,
It's
and
great.
and so um, doing that's kind of launched my theater career. When I came to Procter, we did a couple local community theater gigs. We did some Shakespeare in the Park kind of stuff, and
Hmm.
and then had 3 kids. So those are pretty busy years. I recently got back into theater now that the kids were high school age and whatnot.
Yeah.
And, started with doing stuff at our local theater called Loveland Community Theater, Loveland Stage Company, and that's where I'm a board member. So I've been doing a lot of acting along the way, technical theater, so things like uh, video direction,
Hmm.
projections, and technical stuff. So all the gadgetry and whatnot that I learned at Procter, I bring over into the theater world as well.
It's interesting. Before we started talking, these sounded like completely separate interests, right? But now I see where those connection points are for sure. And I'm curious. So, if you think about, since you did start acting so long ago, I'm sure that's informed a lot of what you thought about growing up. And are there any lessons you've taken from what you've learned in acting that you apply in your day-to-day work at P&G?
Absolutely. And one of the things that I have a little slideshow for us later on where I'll show you some pics from shows or whatnot. And one of those is from an improv group that I'm from. And first of all, the thing about improv to business, there's a number of connections along the way, but life is all improv, right?
Yeah.
Life is all improv. You're all making up as you go along. But one of the things that I learned in my time with Covenant Players is we would often do a theater workshop with schools and whatnot. We'd have a game we'd call Elephants. And you'd have everyone stand in a circle. You'd point to somebody and you say elephant. And what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to put their arm out and grab their nose. So you gotta think of an elephant there. But the person on the right and the left are supposed to form the ear of the elephant.
Right.
So you'd go around, you'd point, you'd count, you'd say the animal and you'd have them count. And if they fail to make the nose, they'd be out, they'd have to come to the center. But if their partner to the right or to the left didn't make the ear or the other part of the animal, then that person is also in the center. And really what that talks about is the teamwork required not only in theater, but in life as well. No one is alone. We don't do any of this stuff by ourselves. Like certainly you can slog through a bunch of spreadsheets and whatnot, but you didn't learn it alone. You didn't get expertise alone. You stand on shoulders, even if you're not quite recognizing how many shoulders that you stand on, right? Mm-hmm. So those are some of the things that, theater is very much a team sport, so to speak. Mm-hmm. You have a lot of people that just you have to turn on the lights, yeah, right? So those are the pieces where recognizing the connections between theatrical life and business research world. There's it's very difficult to, even with all the DIY tools that are out there today, mm-hmm. there's teams behind all those companies that we use to find people, to collect data from, to analyze and display all those kinds of those data sets. Right. It's a team sport, and it's particularly noticed when, even if it didn't necessarily fall on you, when other members of the team, miss something, then it's like, you're still stuck. You still got to figure out what to do. So.
Yeah, exactly. So you have me curious now, right? So you mentioned you've got some photos. So let's see the photos. What you got?
So what I got going on here, these are in probably no really great order, but some of my most recent roles. This one here is from Rabbit Hole. Rabbit Hole is probably one of my most serious and dramatic roles there, with the father of a child that was killed in a car accident. And he and his wife are struggling through their grief and their loss and how to relate to the teenage kid that struck and killed their son. Mm. All right, and page, I think this is a page down thing. There we go. This is I'm playing the radio station manager from the musical Memphis. Mm-hmm. First tells the story of Huey, this DJ guy sitting in the truck there, who brings African American music to the Memphis radio scene. This is "Don't Drink the Water" from Neil Simon. So I played Mr. Kilroy. Interesting thought. Just heard recently that one of my favorite performers, Mike Rowe, also played Kilroy in a production of "Don't Drink the Water." And
interesting.
Gets pretty banged up by the end of Act 2 there. So that's the sling and whatnot.
It's a dirty job.
A dirty job, but somebody's got. That's absolutely right. Hey, this is from one of my favorite movies and a great musical, which is White Christmas. So I'm freckle-faced Haynes, dog-faced boy. So the brother of the two female leads, so to speak. This is Fiddler on the Roof, one of the first musicals I ever did at Loveland Stage Company. I was singing in a local community choir. That was something as as our kids were approaching, high school age and exiting out, my wife and I decided, well, what are we going to do to, go into our empty nester years? And we said,
Yeah.
let's maybe start with a community choir. And one of my cast members in the choir was directing fiddler, and she says, "Oh, you should try out for this." And so when the director says you should try out for something, it's kind of a easy win. Don't have to worry about as much. Children of Eden. So this is a great Stephen Sondheim musical. Also, basically, after I did Fiddler, my wife said, I know as much time as it takes away from the house, we're going to do them all together. So now this is one of the first musicals that she and I both did.
That's great.
Guys and Dolls, classic musical. I got to play Nicely Johnson. So here it is, the end of Sit Down, you're rocking the boat.
Yeah, very nice.
This is the improv group. This is Go with the Flow. Actually, the guy in the background there, in the green shirt, he's a friend and colleague from Clorox.
Wow.
There's a lot of work, but he's created this group to teach basic improv skills, and this is at one of our showcases. For me, I'm not a great improver. I really love to have a script, memorize a script, know a character, but improv is a stretching thing for me as an actor.
Sure.
I mean, things go wrong on the stage, and you have to be aware and be able to give and take. And this is something that kind of stretches those muscles. I know that Scott and the Clorox company, he does a lot of improv workshops there to get folks to learn to go with the flow and think outside the box in that way.
Cool.
Professor Plow. So just a classic comedy with this group. Cabaret. Now, I think I actually have a couple Cabaret pictures. Cabaret is probably one of my better known roles. I think it's a great show. A lot of serious stuff. My wife Pia played Frau Schneider, who has some very difficult choices to make. But I get to play the Emcee, which is all just fun and playing with the audience.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Ladies, and if you could see me now. So, and then I don't care much. So lots of fun things here. This is from a production of Awaited, which was a Christmas experience put on by our church here in Cincinnati, a larger church, and we'd done this for 11 years. Where my daughter's on the far left, and my wife is in the purple next to me there. But we play travelers as we're traveling into Jerusalem around the Nativity time. So it was a fantastic production, and it was sad to see it go, but it's something that my youngest there, this is her last year, she says, I don't remember Christmas without it. So it's a great memory. This is my last role that before COVID hit. This was February, so we opened up on Valentine's Day of 2020, and I played the pastor there in The Importance of Being Earnest, the Reverend Chasuble. So a modern take on it, but Oscar Wilde's famous comedy there. So yeah, that's kind of a trip down memory lane when it comes to some of the roles and fun that I have with doing theater. The things that you don't see are the technical work on all the projection work that I did for Bugsy Malone and for Cabaret and whatnot.
Cool.
Where we're creating and developing the environment there. Something that projection and video is kind of a new thing to community theater. As it trickles down from Broadway with fantastic musicals like Anastasia that have these brilliant graphics, or even Frozen. how do we translate that into kind of the low budget, but how do we build these newer effects that way? So yeah, I do producing technical as well as the performing bit.
No, that's so cool, and it's really neat that you get to share a lot of it with your family as well. That's got to be extremely rewarding.
It is. So, like for example, in Memphis, my oldest was actually an assistant choreographer and a member of the cast as well when she was taking a break from university and was doing a lot of virtual stuff here in Cincinnati. So yeah, all of our family has performed one way or another along the way.
Super cool. Excellent. Cool. Thanks so much for sharing that. That was a lot of fun. So let's switch gears again. So you, as I mentioned, and you talked, you were really on the hunt for new to the world tools in the research industry. And if you couldn't find them, you built them. So as you kind of look at where we're at now, what is on the horizon? What matters, do you think?
Well, I mean, obviously with our current COVID informed marketplace, COVID turned upside down the qualitative world quite a bit.
Absolutely.
The aspects of it stretched a lot of my own colleagues thinking about, how do we get in touch and talk with consumers? So these aspects of we're doing a Zoom call. Nobody heard Zoom hardly before COVID. Everybody now they call it Zoom fatigue. And, the utilization of the power of the internet, especially for video, is super powerful, and it still is. So there's quite a number of vendors that we are have been using to do one-on-one connects and small connects, even the virtual focus group, although that's definitely not one of my favorite techniques. I recommend to my my own colleagues to use those judiciously. Because the free piece of advice that I give them, like, you think you're talking to 6 people for 1 hour, but you're really talking to one person for about 15 minutes. And of course you'll get the dominant person, and then you're talking to that person for about 40 minutes. But when it comes to utilizing the power of the connected internet, not only can we take videos like these essentially talking head interviews, but then we add transcription, search, and the clipping, and then you can really bring insights to the forefront. So the explosion of video analytics tools, I find still super important. Being able to bring those to bear. I think that we've all been tested in recognizing that the quantitative space has always been, an easy path into digital. But now we have tools such as like OneQ and a lot more of these one-on-one ways to connect to consumers that went beyond the larger panel provider, went beyond the big ones of Kantar, GfK, Ipsos, and to get to I think sometimes not to say that those places didn't provide quality, but there are different levels of quality that you can screen through, I think, a lot faster in certain ways. So yeah, vendors in this space where we are starting to close the gap between the research team and the consumer is really one of those things that I look for and recommend to the products teams. Maybe some of your listeners would probably want to understand kind of, well, where do I sit in the organization? What is it that I do these days? A function called products research testing. We call it PRT. And I'm basically an internal consultant to our R&D team. So what I was doing in a corporate world, I now do specifically right now for the North America Pampers and baby care business.
Okay.
I help find, and here's the elevator speech, I help research teams refine their learning objectives to determine what are the best techniques and vendors that will get their research questions answered, liaise with those vendors to help them execute with excellence so that they'll deliver data sets that will drive decision making and project impact for these project teams to get us out into the market faster. So that's the
Cool.
elevator what PRT is. And so, while I'm not looking oftentimes quite in the same broad corporate space anymore, that is the heart of what this PRT group does, which is looking to bring great insights and vendors to our project teams so that our product researchers can focus in on the product package experience and less about what's the latest, greatest, shiniest technique out there, or I just heard about this vendor and what do I do with that, and those kinds of things. So we help smooth over some of the governance, help be the methodology experts to allow people to really, focus in on the product that people are going to buy, right? I'm definitely just the middleman along the way here, but it's to smooth the road and help folks navigate, with the way that internet companies and how technology and technology companies are now kind of disrupting what was the traditional market research space with the big companies. Anyone can basically create a web page and put a poll app on there.
Right.
Right. So anyone can do consumer research, and the multiplicity of vendors in the space are there. So the question is what's quality? What is great data collection, and more importantly than data collection, because like I said, everybody has a mobile phone. You can get text and pictures and video. You can collect these things because storage is cheap.
Right.
What's most important is the analytics. What is it? How does it translate that data into insight quickly?
Yeah.
Is really important.
Yeah, and that's something I've always admired about P&G, and I've had the good fortune to work with Procter a couple stages along the way. Is just that rigorous approach to research and not taking low quality for an answer, right? So very, very cool. It's an excellent role. So
yeah, I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, Charlie. So I don't know where you have time to consume media, but I assume that you do to some extent, right? This is a podcast. So what other media, whether it be podcasts, books, whatever, are you finding interesting either personally or professionally nowadays?
Sure. Most of my podcasts, I went wide for a while. I'm converging again. So now I'm down to a handful of podcasts. But I've loved TED Radio Hour as ways to learn, Hidden Brain, behavior science and whatnot is something super interesting to me. So I follow a number of those podcasts. I listen to a daily news blog called The World and Everything in It. As I mentioned before, one of my favorite performers is Mike Rowe. His podcast is something that I look forward to listening to. So yeah, those are on the podcast listening side, and on the YouTube side, because I know part of this is YouTube. Smarter Every Day is definitely one of my favorite ones, along with Veritasium, where it's how do you think about science and how do you think about learning in those ways. So some of my there.
Oh, great, cool. Excellent. So this is a question I've been waiting for, Charlie. I know we've been talking theater, we've been talking research, we've been talking analytics, all that stuff. But when it comes down to it, it is the Rock and Roll Research Podcast after all. So, so I need to know. You're stranded on a desert island. You've got 3 records at your disposal of your choosing for the rest of your days. What are they?
Ooh, I would say there's, I have quite a wide range of things. So 3 is difficult, but I would say kind of like on the rock and roll side of life. One of the formative albums for me was U2's Joshua Tree.
Yeah, very nice.
One of my
classic.
first, yeah, absolutely. One of my first stadium concerts and whatnot. So that's number 1. I'd say probably we need to have some show tunes in here, and I would probably say one of the favorite ones to just sing and do is Guys and Dolls. I have had a great time doing that show. So we'll put the Guys and Dolls soundtrack in there.
Cool.
And the other aspect is I mentioned some my church, and so I come from a Christian background. Probably one of the other albums is, and this is kind of goes back to like the early 70s, a guy by the name of Keith Green. So a best of Keith Green albums, very challenging and soul building for me.
Great. I'm impressed at how quickly you were able to rattle those off. So those really must be your 3.
I'm not much an audiophile, but I was able to really think, what are those things that are important and reflect kind of this span of, I'm not a researcher, I'm not just an actor, I do all these other things too. So.
Yeah, great. Well, I really appreciate your time. Love to hear your story, and love to see the pictures of the acting that you're doing, and of course, sharing your wisdom of where research has been and where it's headed. So really appreciate it. It's great to catch up as always, Charlie, and rock and roll.
Thanks, Matt. It was terrific.